I've been matchmaking all my life. I introduced my best friend and his wife. I introduced my program director, Kevin Drosch, to Inhala. And now I'm going to match you with Inhala. Yes, you two should sleep together. Skip the sleep center. Avoid the CPAP machine. Get in bed with Inhala. It's a custom-fit oral appliance. There's no bulky hoses or uncomfortable mask. Inhala works with your private medical insurance and makes the process seamless. I talked to the people at Inhala.com, and they're going to help you just like they helped out Kevin and his fiancée. She'll finally be able to sleep through the night while Kevin is using Inhala. Follow Kevin's sleep journey right here on 77 WABC. Now is the time for a treatment that is right for you. Visit Inhala.com or call 844-INHALA-1. That's 844-INHALA-1. So like my program director, Kevin, skip the sleep center, avoid the CPAP machine, get in bed with Inhala. Inhala.com, INHALA.com.
Attention Ditto Heads. Attention Bo Scouts.
Goes by the pseudonym Bo Snerdley.
It's time for the Soul of Excellence.
He is a radio host at 77 WABC here in New York.
The Rush Hour is on the air.
Rush.
Now here's Bo Snerdley.
James Flippin in for Bo Snerdley, James Golden on this Friday as we plow ahead in 2025. It's Friday, your weekend plans, no doubt, taking shape here. And I hope you had a good week, a good start to the calendar year. But once again, we're bringing the flip flock to the Snerdley audience, leading you up to Katz and Cosby, as I will actually be joining that program as well. But for now, we'll take your phone calls, 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. You can follow me, James Flippin, on X. It's X James Flippin, or on Instagram, Flippin Out Radio. We've been having some fun interacting with you there, going about some of the big headlines right now. Speaker Johnson, Mike Johnson, reelected. He retains the gavel as the new U.S. Congress has been sworn in. There's more coming into focus here for New Orleans, possibly Las Vegas, in terms of the two incidents earlier this week on New Year's Day. One seems to be a terrorist attack, no question. The other one in Las Vegas, a little bit harder to figure out. But the congestion pricing countdown is on. Right now, across the Hudson River, there's a judge hearing arguments concerning this congestion pricing thing and whether or not New Jersey's efforts aimed at stopping it are going to be successful. Otherwise, it'll be $9 just to drive in Manhattan. You always thought to yourself, man, how could they make it more expensive to go into New York? Well, come Sunday, if the MTA has its way, moving to tax your ass, they will succeed in raising that cost. So the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, in place. The need to plow ahead with uncovering what happened on January 6th, 2021, remains. So much that we could talk about today. The terrorist attack in New Orleans. What's the latest with Las Vegas? The procedural event that took place in Washington, D.C., re-electing Johnson. That's all fair game. But as of Monday, it's been 4 years since January 6th. And we still don't know what happened that day. We know it was some kind of government operation. Zero question about that. 26 paid FBI informants in the crowd that day. And then, during the so-called congressional inquiry into all of it, Liz Cheney, the former congresswoman from Wyoming, Liz Cheney witness tampered by contacting Cassidy Hutchinson on Signal, a special secret clandestine texting messaging app that deletes the messages once you've sent them. In essence, in other words, Liz Cheney illegally tampered with a witness. And yet word is coming down this week that President Biden is giving the leaders of the January 6th Unselect Committee, Liz Cheney and Benny Thompson, the second highest civilian medal in the U.S. Biden's putting a medal on Cheney. So that's the prize. That's the reward for a rhino, deep state creature, a freak, fake Republican, a member of the D.C. establishment class, a corrupt dad-having swamp creature, backstabber, Liz Cheney. That's what she gets. That's justice for her. A medal from the president. And yet it's weird. It's so bizarre to me because that's not typically what people receive for witness tampering. Reaching out and attempting to affect the testimony of a witness. Most of the time, you don't get pinned with a medal for doing that. As a matter of fact, let's fire up our AI machine. Carlos, our board op here, he's getting it warmed up. We got to plug it in, put a little gasoline in it because it's got a backup generator. It's a whole thing, but we've got an AI machine here, and John Katsimatidis lets us break it out sometimes. Let's use it right now to get an answer as to what typically happens for witness tamperers. Go ahead and fire it up. It takes a little while for it to get going, but. All right, we're now online. So we're asking the artificial intelligence machine, what is the typical sentence for somebody who witnessed tampers? All right, it's generating it now, and here it is. I got it. Okay. The average sentence for witness tampering can vary significantly depending on the severity of the act, the jurisdiction, the methods used, but generally, a conviction for witness tampering can result in a sentence ranging from a few months in jail for minor offenses to up to 20 years in prison for cases involving serious threats or violence against a witness, with the potential for additional fines depending on the circumstances. So, wow, up to 20 years in prison, maybe just a few months. Big time potential for fines. Oh, but Liz Cheney, she's getting a medal. She's getting a medal for witness tampering, just for being a craven political creature who operates only to benefit the federal largesse, K Street and lobbyists. Just business as usual down on D.C. That's good old Liz Cheney, advancing the national debt, screwing over the American people. That's what a good little member of Congress does, you see? Certainly not worrying about cutting things like spending or reducing people's taxes. That's what a crazy MAGA person would want to do. Oh, and how about this, by the way? It's not just Liz Cheney getting a medal. No. The FBI, which has been so in focus again this week amid the latest Islamic terrorist event, the FBI just released surveillance camera footage. Yeah, of someone allegedly placing a pipe bomb near the DNC headquarters on that day, January 6th, 2021, that something authorities claim they never solved. Who was it? Who was that person? How did they get in there and put down that pipe bomb? And it's so weird. 4 years later, they haven't tracked that person down, but they tracked down elderly grandmas who were there that day. They went to all stretches of the U.S., every corner of the country, to try to track down anybody who might have just showed up and waved an American flag that day. So why are they releasing this surveillance camera footage? Why, 4 years later, right? You're putting out surveillance camera footage. Why? It's a warning. It is a warning to you, the American people. Oh, you think you're making inroads here? Electing Donald Trump again? Pushing back against the FBI and suggesting that there's bias and corruption and misplaced prioritization within the federal police force? Well, here's our warning. Putting out this whole supposed surveillance camera footage, we, the deep state, remain in control. Remember January 6th? Do you remember January 6th? Meanwhile, most people would say, not really on my radar, not a big focus. And yet it is for us patriots on the right, because what happened that day? Who was behind it? Who gave the order to allow these people to enter into the Capitol building? And yet the FBI and the Department of Justice seem unwilling or unable to actually catch a real terrorist. One that just killed people this week in New Orleans. An ISIS lover. Somebody blasting it out on social media. They love ISIS. ISIS flag, the back of the truck. The feds, in terms of January 6th, it was all a creation, a psyop, a pretext to ending Trump, ending MAGA. And yet this guy this week kills people on Bourbon Street, professes his love for ISIS, leaves the Quran open to a passage there in his dingy trailer in Texas. Any chance the FBI would have stopped that guy? Nope. Nope, that one we can't stop. That guy who actually killed people, that one seemed to slip through the cracks. But tracking down grandmas who were there on January 6th going after random patriots, that one we're good at. That one the FBI gets right. And, switching gears here for a second, let's stay on the topic of law enforcement for a second. In Harlem yesterday, a U.S. postal worker on duty, delivering mail, a letter carrier, was stabbed to death by a crazed woman, or at least an individual who identifies as a woman. It is 2025. And that may actually be kind of worth noting, as this person, the perpetrator, is 6'5", and in the perp walk coming out of the precinct in Harlem, there was no hip movement in the walk. If you know what I'm saying, not exactly the most feminine walk that I've ever seen. Just saying. I have no inside knowledge, potentially just a very tall woman. But as someone noted on social media yesterday, the fact pattern of this starting to come out, stabbing a postal worker to death in Manhattan, once upon a time, that would have been treated as a serious crime. Once upon a time in New York City, that certainly would have been treated as a serious crime, but not in this New York City. Matter of fact, somebody getting stabbed at the bodega because there was an argument over some place in line, or who, kind of starting to seem commonplace these days. So let's go back in time. We used our artificial intelligence machine, and I think we can get a 2-for-1 here on a Friday. We already used the AI. Let's use our time machine, because we're going to go back about 25 years. And as we go back, I want you to think about the former DA. Well, 2 DAs ago, so forget Cy Vance. But we're talking Robert Morgenthau, who amazingly to me, was DA from 1975 to like 2010 or something like that. So let's go back to the era of a district attorney who was more focused on fighting crime, believe it or not, than prosecuting political opponents. As in an interview with the Open Mind, Robert Morgenthau, the district attorney of Manhattan. This was just about a month after 9/11. Let's call it more like 2 months. He'd been reelected. We said he was reelected a number of times, right? The good people of New York City saw fit to say, this guy's going to stay in place as the top prosecutor. But in this interview with the Open Mind, Morgenthau was asked about his priorities as a prosecutor.
You were just reelected. You're going to be district attorney forever. What is the area now that you're going to consider most important to focus upon?
Well, I mean, there are two areas. Number one, we've got to help root out terrorist cells that are here in New York. And even though that's a primary federal responsibility, it's also our responsibility. And the second is we want to keep people living in New York, and we want to keep business in New York. So we're going to put a lot of effort into the drug traffic, which is still a major source of crime in New York City.
Yeah, he wants to keep people in New York. He wanted to keep businesses in New York and keep it thriving. What a bizarre concept. Nowadays, you got Alvin Bragg, who, trust me, he doesn't have to worry about getting stabbed when he goes to the deli. And he looks like a big fan of the deli, by the way. But he is focused on prosecuting Daniel Penny, Donald Trump, some random white guy maybe who offends leftist theories regarding multiculturalism and institutional racism and poverty. He's definitely not prosecuting turnstile jumpers. Definitely not going after people committing petty crimes in the subway. So we'll see how this prosecution unfolds. Comes to a bodega, comes to a deli, chances are Alvin Bragg is going to go after the shopkeeper who might be trying to defend himself. Oh, yeah, that's right. Jose Alba? Remember that one? Or no, not Jose Alba. That's the guy from Georgia, but you remember that one. Some shopkeeper just trying to keep himself safe, and Alvin Bragg turned that one into a crime. So when we come back, quick conversation about faith, conversation I had with a friend of mine. Figure it was just kind of worth to connect to this story out of Britain. Unfortunately, Britain's worst kept secret for years, and it's exploding across the pond. And sadly, it connects to a lot of stuff that's going on here in the U.S. But Carlos, that story, not the reason why we're playing the Beatles.
No, Mr. Flippin.
Tell me what's going on with this particular record here.
So today, in 1964, the Beatles appeared on American TV for the second time. The second time on the Jack Parr Show. Hopefully, I'm saying it right.
Jack Parr,
Yeah, which rebroadcasted a BBC session featuring this song, "She Loves You."
Oh, very nice.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
They actually made their first appearance a few weeks earlier.
Well, you know what? We here at 77 WABC, we love you, the listener, and we're going to hear from you as well as we go through. 1-800-848-9222. And there's other stuff we can get into as well. Some of this drinking causes cancer. All right. Not a surprise. And people are leaving New York and New Jersey in droves. That and more on Bo Snerdley's Rush Hour. James Flippin filling in.
Eden Memorial Chapels understands Jewish funerals can take many forms. Some are Orthodox, while others are more conservative or of a Reformed nature. There's no one better. With services close to all New York and New Jersey cemeteries, Eden Memorial Chapels offer fair and balanced pricing and can provide easy transfer of you and your loved ones to Israel. While you're grieving, they're here to take care of all the details so that you deal with less bureaucracy and have more peace of mind. Go to EdenMemorial.com. That's EdenMemorial.com.
James Golden, known popularly as Bo Snerdley.
This is The Rush Hour with Bo Snerdley.
Rush.
Welcome back to Bo Snerdley's Rush Hour. James Flippin filling in for James Golden, and James will be back tomorrow for his regularly scheduled broadcast on Saturday morning, 77 WABC. But on this day in 1967, having received a U.S. Army draft notice, Beach Boy Carl Wilson refused to be sworn in, declaring himself a conscientious objector. Amid the Vietnam War, as a high-profile objector, Wilson did make news with his anti-war stance. And it's Friday. We're moving along here in 2025. The Las Vegas Police Department right now and other officials providing a briefing on that Cybertruck blast on New Year's Day, which may or may not be a terrorist attack. They're looking into that one. The guy who killed himself, an active Army member, and there's been reporting out there that maybe his wife had just told him she was leaving him, having caught him cheating, that type of thing. So that Matthew Livelsberger, the alleged suspect there, he may or may not have been having some issues with his marriage. But this just coming down the pike.
Breaking news, WABC.
Oh, you thought you were done with Judge Juan Merchan, huh? Or maybe you thought that Judge Juan Merchan was going to stand down and stand by for the next 4 years, given that President-elect Trump, in just, 17 days, he will be inaugurated as president. But coming up on January 10th, here in Manhattan, Judge Juan Merchan has said he will sentence the president-elect in that falsified business records trial. The trial in which President-elect Trump, I can't believe it, I just can't believe it, supposedly paid a woman to remain quiet about some time that they allegedly hooked up. But Judge Juan Merchan, not content to remove himself from the political process. Isn't that fascinating, by the way? A guy who is a judge in Manhattan, tasked with enforcing the laws of this here constituency, has taken it upon himself to potentially jail the President of the United States. Judge Juan Merchan figures that he's so important, and DA Alvin Bragg, their whole pursuit of this lawfare, must not go to waste. They can't allow that to happen. So they're going to sentence him 10 days before inauguration. And what do you think's going to happen? I wonder. I mean, any true sentencing guideline, using common sense, any of that thing, Trump would probably get maybe probation, some kind of a fine, something like that. I mean, let's be honest. The case wouldn't have even been brought in the first place if his last name wasn't Trump and if he wasn't running for office. But at this point, more potential chaos in these United States as this guy, Juan Merchan, has decided that he is actually more important than the entire electoral system. And yeah, hey, elections matter, right? Elections matter, right? Especially perhaps for Manhattan District Attorney. So we'll track that story. If you want to get your calls in on that one, you're more than welcome to buzz us at 1-800-848-9222. And I had a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday. You know, I don't really consider myself an evangelist of any kind when it comes to my personal faith as a Christian and some of the struggles that I might have in terms of terrible things that happen, and you try to rectify that with a loving God. And how does that happen? How do bad things happen? And of course, bad things happen to kids, right? Like especially, like it's childhood cancer and painful experiences that kids go through. And you really wonder, how does that happen under a fair, living, and a just God, you know? I think I subscribe to the C.S. Lewis theory, the legendary author, the creator of the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, that God and good is the standard. Like he talked about, you wouldn't know that a line is crooked unless you had something to compare it to. But we're always taught when it comes to God, the Lord's ways are not our ways. So we can't really know for sure. And yet, God's son was sent here to die, his own child. Why not stop that from happening? Why not spare your own child that? Well, we know it's about sacrifice, but we don't know much. And there's much that we probably will never know on this plane. And for the uninitiated, in Britain's worst kept secret for years, this is a case that's just exploding in the UK right now, in Great Britain. A group of adult men have been charged in a grooming case. These happen to be Pakistani men who abused and recruited young girls in Oldham, I think, Rotterdam. I mean, I'm not that familiar with the different towns in England. But these are girls sometimes as young as 12, 13. In some cases, according to accounts, they had showed up at police stations and asked for help, only to be turned away and told to come back when you're sober. Little girls, not even teens in some cases. And this is just a horrific case. You do your own research if you have the stomach for it. It's a horrific case of police not doing the job they're supposed to do. Authorities, law enforcement not doing the job they're supposed to do. This is a case that's been out there for about 10 years now. Originally, it was blasted as some sort of conspiracy or Islamophobia because the guys were Pakistani. And yet guys like Tommy Robinson, who's in jail right now, partially because of his efforts to uncover this, and Sargon of Akkad, Carl Benjamin, I think the guy's name actually is, but that's his, Sargon of Akkad is sort of his pen name online. They've been instrumental in getting the word out here. Now, as this case is being prosecuted, Elon Musk, on his platform X, has been talking about it and putting feet to the fire and saying there's people out there that need to be held accountable for this, including, potentially, a former member of parliament, Jess Phillips. Some are actually calling for this woman to be prosecuted. Now, why is that? It's because she more or less blocked an inquiry into all this. And Jess Phillips, before she resigned her position, represented Birmingham Yardley, a highly Muslim district. Actually, she resigned her position in Parliament in protest of her party leader's position on the war in Gaza. But these Pakistani grooming, I'm sorry to say, and this is not fun discussion or pleasant in any way, these rape gangs, they devastated young girls' lives. They ruined people's lives, destroyed families. And why? Essentially, if you boil it down, it's because cops, government officials, the spirit behind government in Great Britain, more or less just didn't want to offend Muslims. They wanted to maintain race relations, apparently. Tom Holland, not the actor, not the guy who plays Spider-Man. This guy over there in the UK, he's a political commentator. I guess he hosts the Rest is History podcast. He argues, because he's been the center of controversy over his position on this, he says, the authorities have a responsibility to prevent good race relations. This is a noble goal. The authorities have a responsibility to preserve good race relations. That's weird. I never really thought of cops as people that are supposed to be caught up in something as philosophical and academic as race relations. Of course, it is worth noting that you don't have free speech in the UK. Certainly not the way you have it here, to the extent that we do still have it here. But 10 years on, this is a 10 years in the development story that was more or less ignored by traditional news outlets, the powers that be, law enforcement, girls, 12, 13 years old, being drugged, kidnapped more or less, taken custody of via various elements of pedophilia and prostitution. But we didn't want to offend anybody. Didn't want to sort of look as though we were being biased and actually prosecuting and pursuing crimes. Isn't it crazy how it connects so tightly to what happened in New Orleans this week and the terrorist attack? Our federal cops, the FBI, focused these days on white nationalism, white supremacy, parents at school board meetings who are worried about whether or not their kids are being indoctrinated with transgender ideology at a young age, traditional Catholics who feel a certain type of way about abortion. These are the real threats, you see. That's what the FBI tells us. Not ISIS-inspired Islamists. Well, ditto for across the pond, I guess. Virtue signaling, concern over offending others, that's the real priority. That's what matters. But what about the children, right? Who worries about them? The Independent, a UK-based leftist rag, says the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, must hold his nerve. It won't be long until Musk slips. Donald Trump's first buddy has reignited his on-off feud with the UK government, accusing the Prime Minister of having failed to tackle historic grooming cases, demanding that Jess Phillips be jailed and a new general election be called. What's the problem with that? Independent. What's the problem with Elon Musk speaking out about this? Hold his nerve? What does that even mean? That he should ignore the fact pattern and whether or not somebody deserves to be held accountable for this? Keep this in mind. Because sometimes it gets real discouraging, real dark out there sometimes, right? The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. I believe that was Dr. Martin Luther King who famously said that. And that's true for January 6th. It's true for what's going on across the pond with these rape gangs and the prosecution, finally. And apparently it's true in terms of what President-elect Trump continues to deal with. Because the weaponized prosecution is not given up. January 10th, 7 days from now, a week from now, that's when Trump's going to be sentenced for business record falsification. 1-800-848-9222. We'll have a chance to get into your phone calls here. But why did it take 10 years? Why did it take 10 years across the pond in the UK for this story to finally be prosecuted? A lot of it is because they don't have free speech. A lot of it because there is no free flow of information there. You want to speak out against it? You want to object? You just might get thrown in jail. But like we said, the moral arc of justice is long. The moral arc is long. It bends toward justice. So even though we've got these raindrops falling on our head, better days are ahead. And Carlos is going to explain.
So, on this day in 1970, B.J. Thomas began a 4-week run at the top of the Billboard Hot 100 with this song, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head.
There you go. And you know what? I once had a nightlight that would play this song, like a little music box version of it. Dun, 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 dun.
In an empty house, just like playing in the background.
Right, exactly. Hey, Carlos, I got to ask, just quickly, because we're going to get into this when we come back. You're not an H-1B board op, are you?
Don't put me on this. But no, I'm not. I'm not an H-1B.
James Flippin in for James Golden. And this is the Rush Hour.
Drops keep falling on my head, but that doesn't mean my...
It's the Rush Hour with Bo Snerdley.
Goes by the pseudonym Bo Snerdley.
Rush.
Now here's Bo Snerdley.
On this day in 1976, amid a sea of political discourse regarding the conviction of boxer Reuben Hurricane Carter, Bob Dylan's protest song, Hurricane, peaked at number 33 on the Billboard Hot 100. And here at 77 WABC, we're talking a lot about MAGA these days. Well, of course, that's Making America Great Again, but it's also Making America Give Again. Because you've heard us talk a lot about Shriners Children's Hospital, but this is really an incredible place, folks. And to support Shriners, Sid and the WABC Radio Foundation are teaming up here, as it'll be a live Sid and Friends in the Morning right here at Studio 77, January 28th, in front of a live studio audience. And you can take part in that. You can join that live broadcast of Sid and Friends in the Morning as the first 40 that eventually will be filled up at WABCRadio.com/live show, WABCRadio.com/live show. By donating $225 to Shriners, you'll get access to attend this special live broadcast. So you both give to a good cause, Shriners Children's Hospital, helping so many families and kids, and you come see Sid do his thing live and in person. What a disaster! Go to WABCRadio.com/live show now. And you know, I just want to say, it's so nice to see people kind of coming into their own, right? I'm meeting Eric, the new board op and call screener here at 77 WABC. Carlos is doing a great job. Lisa keeping us updated on the traffic and the news. I just want to give a shout out to Kevin Drosch, the program director, because he is just absolutely nailing it as the fun police around here. You know, you get too loud with the laughing, you're joking around, he's saying, hey, keep it down. That is just really coming into your own as a program director. And speaking of the fun police, apparently drinking causes cancer. This is what they're telling us on a Friday night? They couldn't drop this on a Monday? A Tuesday or something like that? No, it's Friday. You're getting ready to go out. I mean, Carlos, what are they trying to do to us here, man?
I don't know. What is this? This is the first time I'm hearing
This is the first time you're hearing of it, right? Yeah. If only we'd known. All right. We're going to get into some calls here as we've been talking a lot about the horrific case of the Pakistani grooming gangs across the pond. January 6th, Liz Cheney's getting a medal because she witness tampered. And also January 10th, that's when Judge Juan Merchan will be handing down his sentence for President-elect Trump and falsified business records. You know, that is just a brutal crime, ruthless. Falsified business records. Absolutely, just brutal. Joe is in New Jersey. What's going on, Joe? Hello. Oh, that's a different Joe. That's okay. Joe's on Long Island in this case. Joe, what's going on?
What's going on is it's disgrace that what's her name, Cheney, is going to get a medal. Give her the immunity, pardon, whatever she's got, and then we should call her, the Republican Party should call her, Congress should call her to testify, what did you do? And if she lies, if they can catch her in a lie, then they can put the son of a gun in jail. She is no good. You know what, I would give her a gift. Go bird hunting with your father. Maybe you'll get shot in the face and it'll prove your looks. You're ugly on the outside. You're ugly on the inside. You're ugly in the mind. You don't give a damn about the American people. You care about your father and his cronies that milk this country dry, and they sit on the highest mountains and look down on us while they got their hand in my pocket.
Yep.
Those days are over.
Those days are over. Well, Joe, it is kind of crazy when you think about it, right? We don't necessarily have much expectation that members of Congress would actually do anything, even if they did catch Liz Cheney in a lie. Right? Not a lot of confidence that any official inquiry would make a big difference there. All right, now let's do Joe in New Jersey. Joseph.
Yeah, James, I'm going to talk about what you heard, the Pakistanis in Great Britain. Over in Europe, I'm starting to see what you could actually call a crusades going on. You have a war against Christianity and Islam. And the sooner that this country, the United States, recognizes what's going on over there, those people aren't assimilating to their countries that they're immigrating to. And if this starts to happen here, they better handle the problem before it gets out of hand like Europe.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, the situation in Europe is absolutely dire, Joe, unfortunately. And in many ways, thanks for the call. Enjoy the weekend. In many ways, the problem with what's going on in the UK is that it's so specifically immigration coming from various Arab countries or a lot of Islamic-inspired locations where people are coming in and they've got totally different cultural practices than what is standard in the UK, in England, amongst the English. But unfortunately, unlike the U.S., which at least we've got it codified in the Bill of Rights, the freedom of speech, the freedom of the press, Things are not quite the same there in the UK. As a matter of fact, people might be really surprised. Because why does it take 10 years to get to the bottom of such a horrific grooming gang story? Why does it take 10 years? Well, it's because speech has been largely paralyzed there in the UK. As a matter of fact, if you spend any time on social media, you'll see this kind of thing all the time. Cops in the UK showing up and arresting people for things they posted online.
I don't understand. I posted something that he posted. You come to arrest me, you don't arrest him. Why has it come to this? Why am I in cuffs? Because of something he shared, then I shared.
Because someone has been caused, obviously, anxiety based upon your social media page. That's
not his.
Why you've been arrested.
Caused anxiety based on your social media posts. That's why this guy was getting arrested, because his social media posts caused people anxiety. That's the kind of limiting factor. That's the kind of oppression and authoritarian control that allows something like grooming gangs and rape gangs to go uninhibited for 10 years. Because those at the top, the people in power, they tell us, oh, well, got to maintain race relations. If anybody objects, well, you're causing us anxiety. And now you have to go in jail. It's the Rush Hour. James Flippin filling in for Bo Snerdley. And we got to give each other some RESPECT. Carlos?
Yeah, James. January 3rd, 1987, the Queen of Soul became the first woman to be inducted into the Rock and Rock Hall of Fame. From her Midwestern gospel roots, rose to become one of the biggest stars in the world with 100 entries on the R&B chart, 73 on the Billboard Hot 100, and 17 top 10 hits. Like, I don't know. What else can I say about that?
Well, you said it all, Carlos. The Queen of Soul, the first ever woman inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And we'll let this take us to break. When we get back, still so much to do, including a check-in with you on the phone lines. James Flippin in for James Golden on the Rush Hour.
James Golden, known popularly as Bo Snerdley.
This is The Rush Hour with Bo Snerdley.
Rush.
Wake up, little Susie, wake up. Wake up.
It was on this day in 2015 when Phil Everly, one half of the Everly brothers, died of complications from lung disease at the age of 74. That legendary duo responsible for such hits as Wake Up Little Susie and All I Have to Do Is Dream, a major influence on artists like the Beach Boys. James Flippin in for James Golden on this Rush Hour. Coming up in less than 5 minutes, it'll be Katz and Cosby, and I'm going to be here with the judge, Richard Weinberg. I'm going to be here with Ed Cox, and I'm going to be here with Governor Patterson as well as we discuss the various issues that are making headlines right now. The sentencing apparently going to happen for President-elect Trump, January 10th. Judge Juan Merchan says it's going to happen. All kinds of ongoing mayhem and disorder in the subways. Governor Hochul says she thinks she has a solution there. And also Mike Johnson reelected as Speaker of the House. So let's check in on the phone lines before we say goodbye here on the Rush Hour. And it's going to be Greg in New Jersey joining us now. What's up, Greg?
Hi, James.
Good evening.
I got a question about this pardon that Biden gave his crackhead son. It goes back to 2014.
It's a pardon that more or less spans the entire time that he was involved in, Burisma or whatever, all that stuff.
Yeah, so from 2014 until now. So if we find out next, 6 months from now, that he raped and murdered 10 underage kids, he can't be prosecuted for that?
It's a good question. As far as I know, it's kind of a blanket pardon that supposedly applies to various different crimes or maybe potential crimes. As far as whether or not it could be extended to some other things that may or may not be included on the laptop, let's say, that's for somebody who is a legal expert to answer. But I do know that it's considered a wide-ranging pardon. So certainly something that will have to be looked at as we continue forward, and there may be more revelations in that particular case. Let's talk to Pam in New Jersey. Hi, Pam.
Hey, I think Trump and Melania should show up for Jimmy Carter's funeral wearing an old-fashioned prison outfit, you know, like the kind you see from the 30s and the 40s and the Three Stooges.
With the stripes?
And everything.
Mm-hmm.
With the stripes and the cap, and also with a ball and chain attached. And perhaps they could write Liz Cheney, get it, Chain, since she's getting that disgusting award a few days before. And let it go viral and show the world what a joke of a government we have.
Yep. Well, look, at this point, we're a week away from President-elect Trump apparently being sentenced for falsified business records. What's it going to be? House arrest? Probation? A fine? Jail? Boy, wouldn't that shake things up? We'll keep you posted. All here on 77 WABC. It's been great getting a chance to fill in for Bo, James Golden. This is James Flippin. Stay with us, as on Katz and Cosby, we've got a full lineup. Donald Clavin from out in Hempstead, Vito Fossella from Staten Island, Larry Kudlow, Newt Gingrich, Peter King, Miranda Devine. It doesn't get any better than that. Right here on 77 WABC.